Welcome to the Pop Culture Lab, where we break down your favorite movies and TV shows. This week, we're reviewing Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, Part 1. Connor, let's get in the lab. Dun 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 dun. How long are we gonna riff?
Yeah, we're done. That's all. But man, does that little tune get you amped up?
Oh man, brings me right back to the 90s.
Yeah, it's a great one. It really is. It just, I don't know, it captures the feeling of the action so well. And
I wonder who wrote it. I feel like all of the themes that I know were written by either John Williams or Danny Elfman, so I wonder who wrote that one.
Yeah, and Hans Zimmer has some good stuff.
I guess he does have a couple.
Yeah, but like
the Mount Rushmore of movie score composers.
To be fair, though, Zimmer kind of, I feel like he doesn't do ones that are as bombastic. Usually he kind of, I don't know, almost hides within the movie. He's more seamless in a way. Although when I think of Hans Zimmer now, I think of Dune. Like,
yeah, that's true.
That's really, really great. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's maybe his best work ever. But
It's very good.
yeah.
Very kind of Arabic.
Yeah, oh yeah. Deserty. Well, we just got out of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, Part 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Feels good.
Yeah, get me into Part 2. Just stick me in a movie seat right now.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hate that I have to wait for that. I wish it was almost a 3-hour movie, but I almost wish I could just knock it all out at once.
I know, totally. But I'm at the same time, I'm glad, I'm glad they're actually just concluding this franchise.
This is the end?
Well, this next one will be.
For sure?
Definitely.
Okay.
Tom Cruise is reaching a certain age, and
they're not going to just replace Cruise with another action star?
no, it's not James Bond in that way.
Okay.
No, these movies are Tom Cruise
You say
in the way
that.
that Top Gun is Tom
But
Cruise.
Hollywood loves money.
Yeah, but I just, if anything, they would do like a spin-off with Vanessa Kirby or,
Haley
Haley Atwell, exactly, not Steinfeld, excuse me. But yeah, I doubt that they'll continue making them, at least in this form. Ethan Hunt will not be recast with anybody else. That Tom Cruise owns that one. And
Sure.
He is an untouchable figure in Hollywood, in general and at now especially. So I would be very surprised if they did that. But I think they're going to finally wrap it up, which is for the best, especially when you've created an antagonist as big as this AI.
The entity.
The entity. What? Yeah. Well, do you want to start with what we've been watching?
Let's do that.
What have you been watching?
I've been catching up on Secret Invasion, which no doubt we'll do a recap of when it comes to its conclusion.
Sure.
But I'll give just a brief overview.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I've been enjoying it. I love having Samuel L. Jackson back.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really what matters. If you had a 5-second reason to watch this, it's for Samuel L. Jackson.
He's like second to RDJ in the MCU, I think, as far as like bringing it and being an OG and, that connective tissue.
Well, and not only that, I mean, just Samuel L. Jackson has been in movies good and bad, but he always brings that flair, that Samuel L. Jackson, goes for it.
Totally.
And so he can brighten up some kind of mediocre dialogue and just make it really engaging. I've just been enjoying kind of they are really emphasizing these one-on-one tense conversations, and so they'll have Samuel L. Jackson with Talos, they'll have Samuel L. Jackson with Rhodey, they'll have Samuel L. Jackson with the bad guy Gravik.
Or even Olivia Colman.
Yeah, exactly.
But
who's, by the way, amazing.
They've set this show up, I think, to, in some ways, showcase those interactions between solid actors. Because Ben Mendelsohn, Talos is really good. I think Don Cheadle is doing some interesting work in this show. I really do. I think he's kind of bringing some villainy and some he's playing a different character than the Rhodey you know, and he's having fun with it. He's doing an interesting, sinister performance, I think.
Well, and that is a contrast to what you normally get out of Marvel. It is much more ground level. It is heavy on the dialogue, less on the explosions. There are still some explosions and stuff, but for the most part, I'm just really enjoying the character work.
Yeah, political thriller. Yeah, definitely.
It's a nice little palate cleanser from the usual Marvel stuff, I think.
It is. It's not as hokey, and it's not like the second half of Miss Marvel with that group of villains. What were they called even? I don't remember. Who cares? Yeah, exactly. Who cares? With terrible CGI and all that stuff. That just got sillier and sillier and sillier to the point of I was like, I'm not even following this, and I don't even care to. This show's definitely leagues better in that way, but it still has its silly pitfalls in ways, and it's heavy-handed, of course. The big twists and reveals that they think are so mind-blowing you can see coming from a mile away.
Of course.
So,
I will say I am enjoying that Gravik, the main villain, he does seem very competent. Like, he seems like an actually pretty good leader.
Like an actual threat. Yeah,
like an actual threat. And
totally.
And you kind of empathize with him. Like, Nick Fury, he's kind of an asshole. Like, he just totally abandoned everyone, including his wife.
Right.
And so it's not like he's just this great guy. Like, you can understand where they would come from. Like, this guy made a promise to help find them a new planet, and then he just pieced for years on end and really didn't spend any time on it.
Yeah, and I like that they showed Gravik as a child at the beginning. That really kind of puts a start and end point on that character, so you can kind of see
the radicalization.
Yeah, you can see how and why that might have occurred. And am I missing something, or is Gravik actually the son of his wife?
Oh, maybe.
Isn't that the woman who ended up being his wife?
Could be.
I feel like they haven't really touched on that. There are a couple things, I will say, in this show that feel like loose threads that I can't quite figure out where they're going.
Well, and they may be setting that up for the finale.
Yeah, I think Maria Hill might not actually be dead.
Oh.
That's a possibility. But again, back to the surprises, like when, what's her name?
Emilia Clarke.
Yeah, Emilia Clarke, when she died and then immediately came back in the next episode.
That one
was
was
not
very
only
obvious.
was that obvious, it was not even enough time for it to matter or to sink in.
Right.
It's like they are willing to do things bold, like killing Maria Hill, which really, my jaw dropped in that scene. But then they do other things that are just like, dude, Marvel, they're not dead.
Nobody's dead for long.
Yeah. And I kind of have a feeling that a lot of these people that we might think are dead are not going to be dead for long.
Probably.
There was probably a squirrel.
What have you been watching, though? Oh, wait, before you do that, I will say it's been nice to have Shooter McGavin back.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well cast as, he's a Skrull.
Just
but
a skeezy politician guy.
Political pundit, right?
Yeah.
He's
like a Rush Limbaugh type.
Yeah. Or not...
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson or... Hannity is always up Trump's ass. Yeah. He reminds me of, he's kind of Hannity-esque to me.
For sure.
But yeah.
But what have you been watching?
Well cast. After we watched Isle of Destiny, I revisited the Indiana Jones films. I skipped over... I haven't watched all of them. I only have so much time in the world. I didn't watch Temple of Doom.
Yeah, that's the one to skip.
Yeah, I remember it vividly. Kalima!
Sure, yeah.
Kalima!
It's the weakest of the first trilogy.
It is. It may be one of the weakest overall. I would argue it's still weaker than Dial of Destiny, probably.
Yeah.
I
didn't see Crystal Skull, so...
Yeah, I probably need to rewatch it. I remember kind of rolling my eyes, but... Actually, as I thought about this as I watched them, I'd probably say, Raiders of the Lost Ark, especially upon rewatch, is an
amazing.
Untouchable, perfect... No notes on this movie, by far the best in the franchise. Everything else is just trying to be that, kind of.
Yeah, hold on to your seats.
Yeah, whereas, I would argue with the, let's see, Lucasfilm's other, little beast, Star Wars, I would say number 2's the best. They go up and then back down. But the Indiana Jones movies, unfortunately, really never capture the magic of the first one. But Last Crusade was really enjoyable.
It's a fun one.
At the beginning, I was kind of like, just felt like they were going through the motions. It's like that starts with, I do love the prologue of that one as well, where River Phoenix plays him as a child. And you discover how he was kind of inspired to be Indiana Jones and where his fear of snakes comes from and how he learned to use a whip. And I had to watch a breakdown to even add this all up. But there's this at the beginning when River Phoenix is running, he gets this thing. It belongs in a museum. He takes it from these guys who are like tomb raiding basically, and but the tomb raiding guy has like a fedora on and a leather jacket and clearly provides inspiration for him. They have this kind of antagonistic relationship, but by the end the guy's like, you got heart, kid, and clearly was an inspiration to him. But there's this whole sequence on a train where it's a chase and he's trying to get this, guy's trying to get back whatever Indy has stolen, and Indy falls into one of the trains. The whole train is actually like a circus train that's holding animals. And so at one point he falls into a pit of snakes. That's where he gets that from. But in another part, he falls into a car with a big lion. And he's like, holy shit, what am I going to do with this lion? And there's a whip on the wall because they use that for the lions. And so he grabs the whip and is like whipping it so the lion stays back. But because he's never used a whip before, he whips it and it comes back and slices him right under his lip. Like it draws blood, and that's how you know. And the reason that they did that is because if you look closely,
Harrison Ford
has always had a scar right there.
Oh, that's cool.
And I never added that up, but it's a very cool and practical little detail.
What do you know?
Yeah, I really appreciated that level of attention to detail. But anyway, with Last Crusade, that part's enjoyable, but then he's like in a classroom again, and the girls are falling over him again. Like, I enjoyed that Dial of Destiny contrasted that.
Sure.
So yeah, they're kind of going through the motions for a while. He's going to this other place. There's this German girl who's very sexy, and it's like, oh my God. So that's all fine. Once Sean Connery comes into the picture, it really takes off. Their dynamic is so good. They still fighting Nazis, all that stuff. So the trappings are a bit rote, but their relationship really sings. Their acting together really sings. You just buy the dynamic of this cold father, and then at one point he thinks Indiana Jones dies off this cliff, and he's like actually emotional. I think really Sean Connery brought his A game. And he's not James Bond where he's so cool the whole time. Like, he adds this layer of humanity, and he does. Their relationship is great. Like, one of the best dynamics in all of Indiana Jones. I was very surprised.
Very nice.
But yeah, Raiders is just perfect.
Worth the rewatch, it sounds like.
I think so. I mean, Last Crusade was, and Raiders of the Lost Ark is always worth a rewatch. Shout out to Eric Voss and New Rockstars. What I would highly recommend doing is watching. Or watch this breakdown first and then the movie, or vice versa. But watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and then watch New Rockstar's new channel, The Deep Dive. Watch Eric Voss's deep dive on Indiana Jones. It's amazing. He'll point out so many details that you didn't know about, and context in how the movie was made and why things were done. And it's these deep dives are fantastic.
He does good work. He definitely does good work.
He does. I'm like smack in the middle of his deep dive for Jurassic Park 2, and it's just like he's doing all Spielberg right now. I'm just like, makes me want to go revisit all those. The only other thing I'll say that I am watching is Hijack, which is on Apple TV Plus. I thought it was going to be a movie just from the way it looked, but it turns out it's a series. It's Idris Elba. And he plays this like...
Oh, I heard about this.
He's like a professional negotiator who basically ends up on a plane that gets hijacked by these guys. And, all members of the people on board are involved. The crew's involved. Not with the hijacking, but just in terms of figuring out this whole situation, the pilot. But it's basically kind of like it's almost like a Taken thing where he has these special set of skills. Right. But I like that rather than being like I can just punch these people, I can punch my way out of this situation. It's more like he's this negotiator that really has to rely on psychology, and he's always kind of thinking like in the second episode, or maybe it's the end of the first episode, he's like, I'm going to help you guys. Like he builds their trust and actually sort of convinces them that I'm on your side, or he's trying to, and they're like suspicious at every turn. But the approach that he's taking is very, very interesting. It's just a little different, a little outside of what you normally see, much more psychological.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's pretty good. There were some like weird character choices in the first episode or two that I was like, but it's really episode to episode has grown on me. And like when I'm watching with my fiance and we finish one, we're like, boom, like turn on the next one. It's really pretty riveting, some of it. So
good rec.
Yeah,
I'll have to check that out.
You got anything else in the can?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I have a million things on my list to watch. I'm still plugging my way through Station 11, but
yeah.
But yeah.
You definitely want me to watch that one.
Yeah. I'm desperately begging you to watch that. I think you're gonna love it.
I'll check it out. You've piqued my interest for sure. I don't even you haven't gotten on your knees to this point before, so fine.
Very rarely do I
watch it.
Beg you to watch something. It's usually the reverse.
Yes, kiss the ring and tell me why I should watch it.
Well, shall we get into Mission Impossible?
Tell me, do you choose to accept your mission?
We shall see.
Yeah,
we shall see, good sir. This message will auto-destruct after 5 seconds.
Exactly.
All right. So in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 1, Ethan Hunt and company return in the latest adventure, this time against an ultra-advanced, seemingly omniscient AI. As he travels the world, chasing after keys, girls, and evading government agents and international terrorists, he has to confront whether the lives of his comrades are worth more than the mission itself.
Well said. Add a little emotion to the synopsis.
Indeed.
I like it.
Yeah, Ethan Hunt is... he's not just a stone-cold killer, although he is that. But the difference being that he's got friends, and... That's what sets him apart.
Indeed. Not to already pull this out, but it's almost Batman-esque because it's about the friends. I think sometimes those characters, and even James Bond has a lot of that because he needs Q and he needs M, and
right.
And I really think that sometimes these action heroes are at their best. Like we were comparing this to John Wick early on, and the difference is, I guess John Wick has like Lawrence Fishburne and stuff, but those relationships don't seem to run as deep. I think these action heroes really stand out when you feel like they have a friend, like friends or a family of sorts, that people that really care about them and that they care about, and that there is a line of like what is most important is those people around them, not like the mission.
Well, I mean, not to spend too much time on John Wick, but the first movie establishes that basically his wife is dead, and then they kill his dog, and so there's basically nothing out there for him. Like, he's just a man with nothing to lose.
Right, which is always great. That's a great jumping off point for an action hero, but it's more interesting and complicated and nuanced, and gives more room for the villains to take advantage, and allows for a little bit more cat and mouse when there's something that the hero does actually care about. There's more places for that to go.
Well, and there's more humanity. I mean, John Wick is a badass, but it's hard to empathize with him because he's a completely stone cold killer.
Especially by movie 4. Like in the first movie, you're like, okay, that dog is fresh in my mind. Like you killed a dog, man.
Right.
But yeah, by 4, it's like, wait, why is he doing this again? Like, even in the movie, they're like, why are you doing this? He's like, I'm just pissed off. All right.
Well, what do you think of this movie?
I really enjoyed it. I would be curious to hear from you how many of these films you actually feel like you've seen. It sounds like maybe just 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But I have seen all of them. I have not watched the first one in quite some time. I have repeatedly watched kind of the more modern ones. 2 is directed by John Woo, and it's fun, but it's very silly. Like, there's a lot of John Woo in there. Like, John Woo loves birds and doves and shit. And, like, there's a scene where Ethan Hunt just comes barreling out of this, like, barn on a motorcycle, and then these doves just fly behind him for no reason at all. Just ridiculous. And then the third one's directed by J.J. Abrams. It's pretty solid. It's got Philip Seymour Hoffman as, I'd say, one of the best villains in the franchise overall. And from there, things really, really kick off. Brad Bird directed number 4, which is, I believe, Ghost Protocol. Yes. That movie is amazing. Like, the scene when he's on the side of the Burj Khalifa, and he's, like, sticking to it, and he loses one of his gloves that's helping him stick, and you're just like, oh, my God, this guy's going to fall and die. Really one of the best stunts in the entire franchise. So that's a great one. And then that's when this director, Christopher McQuarrie, takes over, and he does Rogue Nation, which is badass, introduces Jeremy Renner, who's a great character, and that movie's a lot of fun. They hang Tom Cruise on the side of a plane for real. That's a great one. Then Fallout, I believe. It's just Fallout
How do you
after
keep
that.
track of these?
How many am I up to here? Wait,
I
1,
think
2,
you're up
3,
to
4.
5 or 6.
I think this is 6, and the last one's 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So I think that's right. I don't think there's any other ones. Yeah. So Fallout is really, really great. Henry Cavill. That's why he had his mustache for the famous Justice League reshoots where they had to CGI out his mustache as Superman. But anyway, that one's really, really good. It's really tight. Like, I'd say probably the most tightly made of the Christopher McQuarrie ones thus far. So anyway, long story short, I'm very familiar with the franchise, and this movie was great. I mean, I think that Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise, who are really the ones making this movie. I mean, Christopher McQuarrie is the director, of course, and Tom Cruise is the main actor, but Tom Cruise is the lead producer. Like, you can see when we saw the credits, it's like a Tom Cruise film. And they were the ones who, when we were in the theater, we got this thing that we're seeing more now, where 2 prominent people from the film, or at least one, I think the Muschiettis did it for The Flash, even when we actually saw it. They're like, oh, thanks for coming to see this in a movie theater. And so anyway, they're really the creative minds behind it, and they're still delivering some of the best action movies in the business. They really are. They are pushing stunts to absolutely new heights, finding ingenious ways to shoot these stunts, and just really bringing energy to their films. That being said, this movie was more bloated in its runtime. There's like some definite, it's weighed down by some dialogue-y, exposition-y bits. But overall, I really I got what I wanted. I got exactly what I wanted that I paid my ticket for. I just like sat there in that seat for 2 hours and 40 minutes and was like, whoa, oh yeah, woo. So I'm happy. Very happy. I'm looking forward to the next one. I think it's a good ending place to have the next one. I don't think they have anywhere else to go, other than all this absurdity. So,
yeah, it's this movie knew what its goal was, and it went for it, and I love that. Especially after having seen a handful of action adventure movies recently, like Indiana Jones, or like what was the other one we watched? John Wick, of course.
John Wick. Yeah.
I felt like this one was a much better edited movie.
Very well edited.
Very well edited movie. It was a little bloated. Like, you could easily cut off probably 15 to 20 minutes, mostly of the dialogue, and mostly in the first half. As usual, I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to movies that kind of ascend as they go, that get rolling, and then you kind of can't look away. And halfway through this movie, I was not looking away. I was
locked in.
Exactly. Once they get to Rome,
agreed.
That was kind of the scene that really put it together, and then you're just along for the ride. The first half took a little while to get going. There was definitely too much exposition. There was this,
and it's corny a bit.
There was this kind of over serious dialogue about the existential threat of this AI, and like they had just like 2 or 3 too many conversations about that. that none of which I could take seriously.
And even between like Ethan Hunt and that like CIA director guy before Ethan Hunt threw the gas or whatever, it's like, do you realize that everyone's gonna be coming for you? Ethan Hunt?
It's so much.
Yeah. They could have dialed some of that back a little bit, but
for sure. And then it would just take too long. Like that scene took too long. The scene later where they're having basically the exact same conversation, except it's Ethan Hunt and his friends, his cronies. They're having essentially the exact same conversation about the threat of this AI.
Oh, right. And then they have the same conversation at the club.
Right. Right. In Rome or whatever. Yeah, they did not need to do that at all. And then kind of the physical manifestation of the entity in the club there with that weird noise that they kept on playing. Ooh. Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was just a little much. But I'm nitpicking. Those were a couple of things that took me out. Overall, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I thought the action scenes were fantastic. I think we're going to have to talk about the car scene with the yellow Fiat.
Absolutely.
Which was so much fun.
Amazing.
Loved that scene.
Yeah. We can talk about it right now. They hit it on like every level, I feel like. I mean, talk about editing. I thought that was impeccably edited. Like, not a shot wasted. You know, like gear shift, gas pedal, cut. You know, it was really, and it felt visceral and it was funny.
Yeah.
She kept crashing into things. You really felt the threat of what was coming to them too, because they're being chased by the kind of government people who are trying to catch up with them. And then Pom Klementov, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce her name, but the girl who plays Mantis and Marvel and everything. Just her and that big armored tank, like she looked like nothing was going to stop her.
Just mowing through parked motorcycles.
Everything. It was really funny. And the dialogue between Haley Atwell and Tom Cruise and that bit was really good.
That was great dialogue.
It was brilliant and very inspired to have them handcuffed to each other. And then she starts driving, but then they switch, so their arms are twisted.
Right. And then they roll the car, and then when they land back like right side up, they've switched places
somehow. Yeah. Very clever, very, very fun stuff.
Very funny,
but not too funny. You know, like it was so, there was quite a bit of humor in that sequence that it almost threatened to like become silly and go off the rails, but it never did. You never lost sight of like the immediacy of the action and the threat, and really, really fun. And you know, these movies are just full of sexy people too, and it's just watching them play off each other is, you know, it's great. Never gets old.
One of the things that I like to, I'm pretty sure I watched the first 3 Mission Impossible movies.
Oh, okay.
And so I haven't seen the 2 most recent ones.
You remember Philip Seymour Hoffman?
No, but I mean...
Okay.
But I mean, when did Mission Impossible 3 come out? It was probably at least 10 years ago.
Oh, easily.
Right, 15, something like that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, though. I mean, there was a break between 3 and 4, and that's kind of when I lost track.
2 and 3 are 2000 and 2006, respectively.
So
quite old.
I'm pretty sure that's the last one I watched was Mission Impossible 3. But what I appreciated about this was that I didn't ever in the movie really feel like it mattered, that I was missing something, or there were definitely characters who had appeared in previous movies, but it didn't really ever feel like I was missing anything.
No, they did a great job of that. I mean, I think, spoiler alert, when Rebecca Ferguson's character dies, we talked about it a little bit after. You're kind of like, oh, you know, they just kill one lady and kind of replace her with another one, which is true. This movie definitely, you know, isn't always doing the female leads any favors. It's very archetypical.
It's a trope in this genre.
They're mostly serving the male protagonist for sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, be that as it is. However, given the history that I feel like if you have watched those movies or they're fresher in your mind, you haven't even been introduced to that character because you haven't seen those films. And if you are, then you do feel that a bit more, you know, like they really do form a bond. It's not like because Vanessa Kirby shows in this movie too, and you didn't really probably even think anything of it, but she kept calling Tom Cruise John Lark, which is something from Fallout. Like, and they acknowledged that in the movie. I think you might have been in the bathroom, but they were like, "Oh, she still thinks you're John Lark." So they have no relationship. She doesn't even know who Ethan Hunt is, you know. So I wasn't sad, but I did feel I felt the history when Rebecca Ferguson died. It was sad, but it was a bit predictable as soon as she started fighting the villain on that bridge. But
it seemed inevitable. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they were introducing Haley Atwell, almost from just the casting, you could tell that was what they were going to do.
Yeah, she's carrying the torch.
Yeah,
for sure. But they do a pretty good job of making, I'd say, the women in these movies like have some agency of their own. They're they are there to serve the Ethan Hunt story wise. But within the context of action and plot, they do have some agency. They're not just pushovers, because she was a very accomplished thief. I liked how he did the close-up magic and all that and got the key from her and gave her the lighter. The key and the lighter switching a bunch of times was well done. Yeah.
I like that that was a callback to at the end. She was doing the same kind of magic trick that he was doing in the airport at the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of stuff like that worked for me. I thought the stunt work, of course, that's kind of what this franchise is known for. The stunt work was incredible. Even just right off the bat in the desert fight scene at the beginning, that was awesome. That
Very
was
good
really
action.
cool. And it's hard for me to remember a fight scene like it in a sandstorm. That was really cool.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, and to go back to the Rome thing, I mean, I think what's the reason... I mean, John Wick is very... We were comparing John Wick to this movie a little bit, and John Wick is also very much filmed right in front of the camera, no special effects. Like, it's really all practical as well. But John Wick does have these longer takes, and that's cool because it lets the action actually play out, and you see that they're actually doing these moves and stuff. But I, as a kind of an old-school movie sucker, I have to say, like, editing does it for me almost more than that. I find myself more wrapped up in it. Editing tells a story. Like, what a movie is a montage. It's a series of edits. Right. And, as cool as it is to watch, Keanu Reeves, like, perform these stunts in real time, to me, there's nothing quite like a perfectly edited sequence. And for these movies, there is still that practicality. Everything's actually practically done. But what I think that lends is like a realism and a tangibility to it. Because in Rome, you can tell it's all shot on location. And they actually did that driving and those stunts in that car. And Tom Cruise is actually driving and with his arm connected to her.
Yeah.
And you can tell... we've seen enough movies with CGI and this and that, or you can just tell the difference. Very, very cool.
Yeah, the stunt work was really impressive. Especially after having just seen that last Indiana Jones movie and how both of us were so disappointed with just how rote the stunt work was, the chase scenes, one chase scene after another. We just came out of it feeling it was very samey, and this is the opposite of that. Like they all had a very strong sense of place. They all felt like it mattered. Like you were on the edge of your seat versus kind of rolling your eyes for like, oh, here comes another chase scene.
Or like, oh yeah, it's fun and entertaining, but yeah, something. As not to revisit The Flash, but it is coming out on digital tomorrow, and so on Twitter and stuff, all these clips are popping up because some people have access to it or something, or it's probably out. I think it's out in the UK too. And I was rewatching certain sequences from The Flash, particularly like the beginning stuff with the Justice League and Ben Affleck Batman, and I do like that opening sequence, and it's really cool when Batman's being dragged behind that car and bouncing around and flying up in the air. But it does, I heard someone else kind of criticize that it lacks like place and feeling like the weight of like action that's actually happening in front of you. Because watching even if it's Batman in armor, watching him like be dragged behind a car that fast and boing, 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 he's like a ping pong ball.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel particularly
visceral.
No, it doesn't feel very real. It's very comic booky, so fine. It's a comic book movie, but it's the exact opposite. You can just tell it's a stuntman on a green screen and whatever, as opposed to what you're saying, which is just that you feel all of that action. It goes a long way. I mean, Christopher Nolan knows what he's doing when he like pushes everything to be practical.
Right.
I think they set off actual like bombs.
I think you're right.
For Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
But
so anything else? Let's briefly just talk about the villain. I mean, there are a couple villains here.
Yeah.
We can talk about Gabriel. I again, not having seen the last couple movies, I don't
he's
really.
New.
Oh, is he new?
Yeah, they do this whole thing like he has a past with Ethan, but that's new to this film. I don't think.
I thought there was some past that I was missing.
I think this may have also been when you're in the bathroom. It was, because this is when Gabriel's name was first dropped. And Ethan Hunt explained that guy actually goes back to a time before Ethan was even part of IMF. So it predates the movies, and like story-wise, it takes place before even the first Mission Impossible movie. So they didn't even show Ethan Hunt's face. They didn't even bother to do de-age him or whatever. It's just like some other guy in the dark.
But he has some kind of sadistic streak and likes seeing people suffer, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, that
did he work for you?
Throwaway, huh?
Did he work for you as a villain?
That shit that you just said, that didn't necessarily work for me. That's like the most whatever throwaway. Oh, he's a villain. He just likes watching people suffer. It's like, okay, well, what villain doesn't? I mean, but having said that, I'm not sure I totally am behind like his relationship to the AI. Like, it feels like this movie knows that the AI is like too big to even wrap your head around, that you need to have a face, and they need to spend like a third of the movie telling you how complicated and scary this AI was. That's probably overall the weakest thing about this movie is like, if you just go back even one movie in Mission Impossible Fallout, it's like everyone's just trying to get their hands on this plutonium. Fucking basic, simple shit. You get the plutonium before this group of bad guys who's gonna kill the world gets the plutonium.
Very simple.
And they don't talk about it at all after that. It's like, just get the plutonium. And that's what really works in these movies. It's funny because in this movie, Benji has a line where like they're trying to talk about the AI and stuff, or they're trying to talk about
details just
the
complicate
plan.
Things,
yeah, details just complicate things. And I was like, movie, you like should take your own advice on that one. Dial back some of the details. We don't know, we don't care, we don't get it.
Right.
Just keep showing us cool action sequences.
We need the keys.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, long story short, I would say that, how do you say his name? Elsai Morales or Esai Morales? Anyway, the guy who plays the villain, he does actually a decent job. Like, all the reasons the movie was telling me to be afraid of that villain didn't necessarily work for me, but he brought a charm and a menace that did something for me. Okay. I mean, he's a bit flat, but I'm kind of curious to see if they do more with that in the second one. I mean, maybe not particularly menacing, but I found him very charming, which I tend to like in villains. I mean, I liked what's his face, that martial artist. He put on a fat suit in John Wick, and he was that very over the top villain. If a villain shows any semblance of charm and smarm, I tend to like that more than you. So that was enough for me to be like, oh, like, yeah. But the movie's trying to have it both ways in terms of having this, like, threat that is impossibly large, but then also putting, like, a small, intimate face on it that has a personal relationship to Ethan Hunt. It's like it's trying to do too much.
It's going to be interesting to see how they balance that in the sequel, because they're obviously going to have some kind of confrontation with the AI, which, I mean, it's hard for me not to envision 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
So
like that sound I just picture Tom Cruise being like, "Hello, entity." It's like, "Hello, Ethan Hunt."
Right, exactly. I don't know.
But maybe not.
We'll see how they handle it.
What did you think of the villainy? Both villains.
I mean, I think Gabriel did fine. I enjoyed the top of the train fight at the end. Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, when they make it smaller scale, I think it works. When they get talking too much, you got me monologuing again. I mean, that gets a little old. I thought the verbal confrontation in the club had me rolling my eyes. I think I even looked over at you and I was like, talkie.
It was, yeah.
But yeah, I think overall it was fine. There were, I think, too many moving pieces in this. There was the U.S. government that was after them. I thought Cary Elwes was a little bit underwhelming. I was expecting more from him.
Well, I know, and suddenly he's kind of a bad guy too. Like, I could have done whatever. I didn't need any of that.
That was too much. I mean, you had the two agents from the U.S. government who were after them. You have Gabriel and the actress who plays Mantis. You have the broker.
Well, I thought she was basically Gabriel's crony.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then you have the broker woman and her cronies.
Yeah, Vanessa Kirby, the White Widow.
Yeah. So, too many. For me, personally, I think there were too many people involved.
Agreed. I will say the White Widow, that just kind of was a plot device so that they could, so Haley Atwell could put on a mask and become her, and, So I didn't feel that as much of a threat to them, as more just a moving piece that ended up just being a plot device. But I agree with you. Too many, people chasing him. Although in Rome, it all worked perfectly in harmony. And I did. So Shea Wiggum is the guy who played one of the agents, the white guy.
Okay.
And I kind of liked them. They were charming enough, and I liked that they kind of came around. That was an arc that wasn't bad. Yeah, ish. But I like that. I like that it's ish. I like that that's still being worked out. I think by the next movie, they're gonna probably really help him in some significant way.
Probably right. I will say that Haley Atwell brought it to this movie. She was one of the absolute highlights.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed how it took her a while to kind of come aboard, and she kept on betraying Ethan over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed her performance.
And it's funny because Helena did the same thing to Indiana Jones in the movie we just watched, but that seemed to be calling more attention to itself. Mm-hmm. This was more
effortless.
Yeah, it was. Exactly. Good word. Yeah, she did a great job. When the IMF, so Ethan Hunt and Benji and Luther are all kind of explaining to her, you have this choice and you can ditch your life and become one of us and blah, blah, blah. She, ever so slightly got these tears in her eyes, and, it's not some Oscar-winning performance, but I was she added subtlety and brought the action piece, and she did a lot with what she was given. She made the most of it.
You could almost see, the walls closing in on her. This is a character who's used to running, from her problems and always finding an escape route. And she's realizing that the moment she leaves those walls, everybody can find her. It's obvious that she's way in over her head. And yeah, I thought she brought a very good performance to this movie.
She did, yeah. Added some nuance, and Yeah, elevated it for sure. Like in that scene in particular, you know, I agree. I think that scene worked because of her performance, like entirely. So
before we get out of here, what would you rate this movie?
well, actually, last thing,
sure.
just to go back to the Mantis character, I did want to say on this podcast that like she to me was really channeling like Oddjob from, is it Goldfinger? Ooh, it might be Goldfinger, but anyway, Oddjob. Everybody knows Oddjob.
Of course, with a hat.
Yeah, with the hat, and he throws the hat. Austin Powers makes fun of it. She really channeled that well because she had said almost nothing throughout the duration of the movie, and she was just kind of a crony henchman, but she seemed scary, like legitimately scary, and I don't know, she really brought the menace and more going on. Like, she didn't have enough to do for you to be like, oh, I see these layers, but you could tell there's more going on under the surface than meets the eye, and I loved the whole thing of how she was spared by Ethan Hunt and ended up saving him later on. Like you said about that, you know, you just save one life, and you don't know the impact that can have. So that was a great twist. Like when they were hanging in that train, I was legitimately like, well, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And she came out of nowhere, and that was good storytelling.
Well, and it looks like she may survive. She had a pulse.
I know.
Yeah.
I hope so. Like more of that character. Super down. But yeah, to wrap it up, I guess, what's your rating?
I think I'm going to give this one an 8. Like an
Ocho.
It was a very good action movie. I had a great time.
Better than John Wick 4?
I think so. Yeah, I like the John Wick movies fine, but I think it brings an extra level of sheen, that Hollywood sheen that just like it's a well-oiled machine.
I agree. Yeah, I enjoyed John Wick 4 a lot. Like, it's very energetic, but I almost felt like I was checking my watch more in that one, just kind of like,
it's going through the motions in a way that, like, this feels more visceral is a good word for it. I mean, it like you get almost your body is into the movie in a way. Yeah,
it's very white knuckle thriller in that way. Edge of your seat, like it in the most literal sense, really. And it's a reminder that you should see Top Gun Maverick because, I mean, that movie has a lot of heart and a lot of character, and you'll love that about it. But these airplane sequences that are also shot practically and so real. I mean, talk about visceral, man. It's like you feel like you're in the cockpit of this kind of plane. And that's why they decided to make this movie, because they were like, Maverick. Because they were like, we did not have the technology in the 80s to be able to do this. And it's so insane when you feel like you're actually in the plane. And it's just, I mean, that's the most edge of my seat I've been in a movie in years. Like, I was just like, holy moly.
I wish I could have seen it in IMAX when it was still out.
Well, it's the kind of movie that may circle back in theaters. Yeah.
What would you give this movie?
I'd say like 8.5, or maybe between 8 and 8.5. We talked about the flaws, but overall, exactly why I bought my ticket. And I just think Tom Cruise and this director and these types of movies, like, no one else is doing it better. He just really brings it. Maybe it's the knowledge that he's doing the stunts himself that I really, really like. But yeah, flaws be damned. I love these movies, and I love this franchise, and I love when they peel off the hyper realistic masks.
Yeah.
That never ever gets old for me. Like, and the whole your mission, should you choose to accept it, and it'll self-destruct. I just can't get enough. I even liked how he was like coaching that delivery guy through it.
Right, yeah, it was so cute.
I don't know. It's funny. It's the movies lean, even Maverick did this. It's like they just lean into the fact that Tom Cruise is like this seasoned vet.
Yeah.
They're not trying to pretend that he's not older and whatever. And it's not even about him being old in the way that like Indiana Jones was. They just it's like he's, I don't know, he's carrying this torch, and it's great. I love these movies, so count me into the next one.
He's what binds this whole franchise together. It is the Tom Cruise franchise.
Right.
In the same way that Indiana Jones is the Harrison Ford franchise.
Indeed. But I appreciate, too, that as an actor, it's not like, look at me, I'm Tom Cruise, and I'm going to suck up all the energy in the room. It's like, he's a fairly generous performer. He, like, wants to work with other people. He's
surprisingly understated for, like, one of the biggest movie stars of our time.
Yeah. No, it's great stuff. Any other thoughts? Oh, before we get out of here, box office hovering around like 80 domestic.
Domestic, yeah, about 250 total.
But for an opening weekend, that's a little bit higher than some of the movies we talked about in our last episode.
A little bit. It's
not much.
It's not great.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm very surprised it hasn't cracked 100 because it's been out almost a week, but it's had a weekend. Yeah. So kind of amazing. I don't want to preempt this, but this is a weird summer box office. It continues to be. We'll
Our
see
theater
where it goes.
was almost empty.
Huh?
Our theater was almost empty.
There was 6 people maybe total in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now more than ever, I think that theaters will be like what Central Cinema has always been over on Cap Hill, just running old movies and boutique, and I'm sure there will be these movie theaters that are definitely playing like what's coming out and stuff, but Regal and AMC and Landmark, they're gonna have to like slash 60-70% of their theaters, no problem. Like they're just not going to be able to stay open.
Well, and the timing couldn't be worse either with the writer strike and everything.
Well, that's halting current and future projects being made. I mean, not necessarily what's being released, but yeah, you're right. If this plus that
combined
may just spell kind of the beginning and the end, but
at least for the the movie industry as we knew it, it's not going to end. It'll just look different.
But if people don't go to movies, then I think budgets will scale back too, because you cannot reap that money back on streaming.
Although I was looking at how much it cost the last 10 Marvel projects, and that's movies and TV shows, and they're pretty comparable. I mean, the big budget Marvel movies cost about as much as a season of a Disney Plus show.
I know.
So I mean, the money's still there. It's just what are you gonna dedicate it to?
I know, but if you're watching Bob Iger closely, he's trying to scale back all of Marvel content across the board, fewer Disney Plus shows, fewer movies. And I think, he's the CEO of Disney. I mean, money's a big part of that. He's trying to please the board.
Yeah.
And I know what you're saying. The money is certainly there, but if people when Disney Plus launched, they had a few things like WandaVision. They poured a ton of money into WandaVision. They had a few other things. They were really trying to drive people to that platform. and I think they're stalling out.
Yeah.
Like the Secret Invasions are not bringing new eyeballs to Disney Plus. In fact, I think what I'm hearing is that Secret Invasion has had a bigger drop off than like Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, any of it. So I just, as a business, I just don't see
money talks.
250, $300 million movies, TV shows. They might still do them, but they'll be fewer and far between. They'll like have to count on a certain amount of viewership. It's just going to change.
I am very curious how Barbie and Oppenheimer are going to do, because I have never heard, well, not never, but not in a long time have I heard so much hype about a movie as Barbie.
Right.
My mom, shout out mom, she was talking to me about Barbie and suggesting, how we might podcast about it, among 10 other people talking about that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard the term Barbenheimer.
Exactly.
And so if that brings people out to theaters, I think that'll be a good sign that maybe it's not all is lost.
I don't think all is lost. I mean, you're right. And I will be utterly shocked if that movie doesn't make like a boatload. It could make a billion.
That'd be cool.
A billion. No problem. I really think it might. I'm almost more excited for that than Oppenheimer.
Oh, definitely.
I can't lie.
Yeah.
Just because it's unique. Like Greta Gerwig and the whole thing. Yeah. So you're right. It remains to be seen. But like we said last time, unless you're cranking out like really mega hype movies, you're shit out of luck. I wonder what it costs to make, but
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Both of us want the movie industry to stay around.
Indeed. It will. It always will. It'll just take another form, as these things do.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, time to get out of the lab.
All right, we've cooked it up. We've filled our beakers.
We have indeed.
We've drained the same beakers that we filled. So
we will see y'all next time.
Till next time.